From the 1011 Now streaming studio in Lincoln, Nebraska, this is the End Report.
Hi, everyone. Bill Rentschler in the 1011 Now streaming studio, joined alongside, as always, by sports director Kevin Sjuts. Kevin, the last time we spoke was directly following Nebraska's huge win over Purdue a couple weeks ago, and they then proceeded to immediately lose their next two games, so I hope we're not going to, again, throw off their mojo, because they had another great win last night, taking down Ohio State at home. And Rink Mast, as you said last night, was the master of ceremonies.
Yeah, you see the common thread here. Win at home, lose on the road. That's kind of life in the Big Ten. It's not just a Nebraska thing. It's across the league. But, man, fans that were at Pinnacle Bank Arena, the last two home games certainly have had a lot of fun. Of course, the court storming that followed the Purdue win. And then last night, did you know that the security personnel inside Pinnacle Bank Arena was prepared for a possible court storming last night?
Against Ohio State? They're not even ranked.
They were ready. They had a couple of those guardrails thing, and the people were in position. I was kind of around there, and they were buzzing about it a little bit, and it sounded like the students had maybe considered it. And when I first heard that, I go, no.
Well, especially after
Nebraska had more wins than Ohio State. That's an unranked team.
Well, and after the Caitlin Clark incident where she and a student ran into each other on the court, and obviously Caitlin Clark is a mega superstar in just basketball in general. Thankfully, I don't think she was hurt, but again, it's something that Matt Painter, after Nebraska's win over Purdue, kind of had a bone to pick with.
We don't need to make this a commentary on court stormings. I actually did that on the radio earlier today, so I don't want to regurgitate my thoughts on it all over again. But I don't think you stormed the court against an unranked team.
No, you did not.
That you win, that you beat at home. If anything, you can we call it like a mast storming?
Yeah.
Like a circle of mast?
Yes.
Just, huddle around the player that scores 34 points on 13 of 17 shooting, 6 3-pointers.
6
and
of 8.
This isn't like a 6'2 guard who can fill it up. This isn't Casey getting 6 threes.
No.
This is one of the most unlikely of 3-point shooters on the team. Rink Mast was in a zone last night.
Your center drops 18 just from behind the arc.
That's pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, but he had some moves, some step to the side, jump back with some arc on that shot.
Yeah, he said the first one, when he hit it, he even kind of surprised himself. And as the kids say, he got on a heater.
Yes, very much so. And he had kind of struggled the last couple games. Again, he had knee surgery, and so, maybe it wasn't all the way back, but now, definitely after this performance, again, it was impressive.
So Nebraska right now sits 15-5 overall. They are 5-4 in the Big Ten. If I were to tell you before the season that the Huskers would be in 5th place in the conference and they would have 15 wins at the 20-game mark, you would take it.
Mm-hmm.
And after last night's win, Nebraska makes a nice jump up in the KenPom and the net rankings. I believe they're 45, 47-ish in both of those, in the mid-40s. And that's a good spot to be. So the NCAA Tournament continues to be a very strong possibility for this Nebraska men's basketball team. And they do have a challenging stretch ahead, not just by the opponents that are ahead, but on the location of the games.
6 road games out of the final 11 games.
3 of the next 4 are on the road, and that's been the bugaboo for this team right now, is winning away from Lincoln. They will have some opportunities here. The road games, the 3 of the 4 in the stretch, are Maryland, Illinois, and Northwestern. Your one home game in that stretch is Wisconsin, who currently leads the conference. So I won't say this is a defining stretch for this season. And frankly, if Nebraska goes, let's say, 1-3, there is no reason to panic. I won't say what the one might be. If you could win one on the road, that'd be fantastic, because maybe it would shed that demon of this season. But winning at home against Wisconsin is going to be very challenging next week. If Nebraska goes 1-3, you're still fine. You're at 16 wins, and the schedule does lighten a little bit on the back end, despite having a few road games in there.
And that's 3 out of the next 4 would be deemed quad 1 wins with the way
All 4.
All 4? I had Maryland ranked 99.
Okay, so they would not be.
They would not be. But still, that's a Q2.
Illinois and Wisconsin are 2 of the best teams in the conference.
Yes, they are.
And those are going to be that's going to be big boy basketball, both those games.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at bracket matrix, which again kind of tracks everything and all that stuff has like 78 different brackets. The Huskers are listed in 76 of those 78 brackets and generally come in around a 10 seed. Which,
really?
Yeah. Which I would like to get off the 8-9 line if we could possibly do that. So if you do.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you here. Would you like the team to be in the tournament?
I would.
Okay, so let's not get too worked up about where they're
true.
seated. How about just entering the tournament for the first time under Fred Hoiberg? And I said following the newscast last night when Ken Shimmick and I and a few other staff members were just talking about the basketball team and the win against Ohio State. Man, what a fun season this has been for basketball fans. Mm-hmm. Not only 15 wins, but the nature of those wins and just the storylines embedded throughout the season. The fact that there was a court storming and a victory over the number one team in the country. There have been some amazing Casey moments, right? Mm-hmm. Danny Nee comes back home and is saluted during a very highly attended alumni weekend. You have the rink masked game now, 34. There have been some pieces that have gone in and out of the lineup. You mentioned Rink Bast and his minor procedure midway through the season. Jawan Gary didn't start in the lineup at the beginning of the season. Now he's injured. Thankfully, he's okay. But even following that, knowing that there was an injury, but he's going to come back, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's on the court this weekend at Maryland. Sounds like he was pretty close to playing on Tuesday. So if you're just kind of riding this season as a fan, it's been pretty great.
And a fan favorite, and again, you just did a piece on him, Sam Hoiberg again, who went from this player last year at the beginning of the year, he's Fred's son, he's plays good defense and he hustles, to all of a sudden getting thrusted into the rotation with injuries last year. And now this year, you could tell watching that game last night, as soon as he got in, that defense, that hustle, that was a spark for that team.
I said it in the story that Sam Hoiberg has gone from a feel-good story to a very reliable piece of Nebraska's rotation. And it's not like he's getting put in there and everybody's standing up because, the coach's son's coming in the game. No, like when he comes in, he brings energy and his defense has really improved. Mm-hmm. And Sam even said earlier this week that the pride that he is now taking in his defense and the confidence he has in it. So last year when he got on the court, he's not guarding Boo Buie. He was guarding a guy that was not as much of a scoring threat. Mm-hmm. But now he's taking, he wants to guard a player like Boo Buie. Mm-hmm. And we saw it again last night with those big, long, athletic guards that Ohio State has. So Sam Hoiberg, that is another piece of this Nebraska basketball puzzle that's been a lot of fun to follow. Not to mention C.J. Wilcher.
I was going to bring him up next.
He is probably shooting the ball better than anybody else on the team. He's been consistently in double digits over the last 6 weeks, and he's not a starter. He's coming off the bench, and he is shooting lights out. I believe in this stretch, he's shooting somewhere around 45% from beyond the arc.
Pretty good. And I think they ran the same inbound play about 3 times in a row to get him that corner shot, and he hit it the 2 times that they could get it to him. And most of the time it just appears nothing but net.
And that's something that's been pretty fun about this team. And Fred Hoiberg has mentioned this several times, is that offensively, Nebraska is averaging nearly 80 points per game. This is their most successful offensive season in about a decade. Mm-hmm. And it's not just one guy who is scoring in all the points. And you think back to Teddy Allen, who carried the scoring load for Nebraska, or even, Glenn Watson did for a while there for the Huskers, Terran Petaway. You don't know who's going to be the leading scorer every single game. Josiah Alec did it over the weekend.
Against Northwestern.
C.J. Wilcher's been that guy. Keisei Tominaga. Last night, Rink Mast, Bryce Williams. So they have a lot of offensive weapons, and it brings some intrigue every time you go to Pinnacle Bank Arena because you don't know what the team is going to look like offensively. I have to presume, from Fred Hoiberg's perspective, that's a lot of fun because when you're drawing up plays, you're not just singularly trying to get a player open. You can design plays for multiple guys. And you think back to the Rutgers game, which might send a shiver up your spine. I get that. But those late game scenarios, it's not like you just had to get the ball into one guy's hands.
Yeah.
You had options.
Yeah. You have C.J. Wilcher, who's shooting 44% for the year from 3. Sam Hoiberg doesn't take a lot of shots from behind the arc, but he's shooting 41%. And then Bryce Williams, 38%. Keisei Tominaga's 38%. Rank Mast, 35%. Even Josiah Alec shooting 33% from behind.
So not only are they shooting the ball well, Bill, another reason they're averaging nearly 80 points per game, they get to the free throw line.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not a cowardly offense. They will take the ball to the hole, and they're shooting free throws pretty well this season as a team. I believe they rank inside the top 25 nationally in free throw attempts per game.
76% team free throw
So
percentage.
they're shooting all right from the line, but they're getting the volume of shots from the charity stripe is much higher than it has been over the past several years.
It's been an interesting, again, contrast. I grew up, again, my Husker fandom kind of started, again, back kind of Doc Sadler era, and, those were a lot of hold the ball, we're going to play defense type of offenses where you'd have some games where it was in the 40s to 50s or whatever it might be, and now it's like last night, they scored, 86?
Amazingly, when you said Doc Sadler basketball, I just had this Rolodex of Nebraska basketball players come rolling through my brain of who do I associate with Doc Sadler basketball.
Alec
Randomly, for the basketball fans that are listening that have followed this program for years, Steve Harley was like the first name that came through. An amazing point guard who had fantastic dreadlocks. Steve Harley, Cookie Miller, Ade Doganduro, Ryan Anderson.
My first Husker I remember is Cookie Belcher.
That was pre-set.
That was pre-set.
Barry Collier.
Yeah.
Era.
Yeah, that was a while ago. So again, you're a top 25 voter, AP. Again, Huskers are not in the top 25. I probably would say they're not in the top 30. Would you say they're 30 to 35, 35 to 40?
Well, Andy Katz lists Nebraska. He does a 36.
Yeah.
And he's consistently had Nebraska in his 36 over the past month or so.
Yeah.
And Nebraska's on that fringe. And, when you look at the others receiving votes in the AP poll, it doesn't necessarily represent. I mean, if I put Nebraska at 25, they get one. But is there much difference between Nebraska and, I don't want to use Grand Canyon because Grand Canyon's actually pretty good. But some of these teams that are in a group of five or a lower conference, I think Nebraska is a better team.
Would you say there's probably not much difference between a team that's ranked 20th versus 30th at this point? They're just all kind of bunched up there at that point?
If you look at the top 25 and you track it over the past month, there have been a number of teams that have continued to rotate in and out of the top 25. Example, Texas. Texas fell out of the top 25 a couple of weeks ago. Then last night, they go on the road. They beat Oklahoma. They looked awesome. Max Asmus looked like an All-American. And so all of a sudden you think Texas might enter back into the top 25, or at least they look like a ranked team last night. So I think that there's probably 20 teams. If you go 20 to 40, if you were to list them all out, they're fairly interchangeable. And I would group Nebraska in that. If the Huskers could start winning a game or two on the road, they are firmly cemented in that group. And going back to your comment about the seeding for the NCAA tournament, if they are in that group, then I think you are like 8-9 territory for the NCAA tournament.
I think we had said last time we talked 20 was the number that they need to hit for the wins. Was that right? Do you remember?
I
21?
Generally speaking, college basketball fans seem to say the rule of thumb, get to 20, get in the tournament. As Nebraska fans learned in 2018, that's not the case. No. Nebraska had 22 wins, but their schedule was so soft, they only had quad 1, and quad 2 wins. And it really went against them when it came to Selection Sunday. This team, Nebraska, already has three quad 1 wins this year. I believe 3 quad 2 wins. And that's where I think if Nebraska, if you look at the next 4, and I hate to just keep being microscopic on the next 2 weeks, Maryland, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, there are 3 quad 1 possibilities in there. And it's going to do wonders for the resume, and that's where I think you start to lean forward more toward that. Then you can get by with 20 wins.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of basketball left to play.
There is.
I think
11 games.
There's 33 regular season games, perhaps, 31 regular season games. So Nebraska can still stockpile some wins. They've got Michigan on the schedule twice ahead.
They do.
And Michigan is not good.
No. Yeah, so it's against at Maryland, Wisconsin at home, at Illinois, at Northwestern. So you've already beat Northwestern one time. Then
Pause.
Oh.
That's Northwestern at home.
That is.
Playing
that's
Northwestern
different.
and Evanston is completely different, and that's what we're finding out with the Big Ten and college basketball in general.
Mm-hmm.
It is so hard to win on the road. Look at Kentucky. Saturday looked awesome at Rupp Arena. Looked great. And they had Ibisevic, their new player, eligible for the first time, and he hits 3 straight threes. Place is going nuts. They look like a team that would maybe reach the Elite Eight. They lost last night at South Carolina. Not because they're a bad team, but they're on the road.
It's tough.
I've got to talk to Fred about this. Like, what is it about this year that has given such a distinct advantage to the home teams? And I want more than just, they're playing in front of their home crowd and they get to sleep in their own beds. I mean, there might be something else to it.
The rims are the same height, the same size from home and away. So, that would be a good question for Fred.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then, like you said, you have Michigan twice, and again, they're not great. You have Penn State at home. They're 121st in the net, so, I mean, they're not having a great season. You play at Indiana, who you've already beat once.
It's on the road, though, Bill.
On the road. Then you get Minnesota again at home, trying to get a little revenge there, and then Ohio State and Columbus and Rutgers at home, and finish the year at Michigan.
Well, I think beating Rutgers at home, that should happen.
Yeah.
Beating Minnesota at home,
that should happen.
That should happen. So again, there are wins on the horizon. You would assume with what we've seen out of this team. And I did get into a little bit of an online back and forth last night comparing 2018 and 2024 Nebraska basketball. And part of the reason the debate comes to life is because of this, what's the magic win number? Mm-hmm. And I just think beyond the resume, beyond the numbers, this team just has a different DNA. It's more appealing to a committee member, in my opinion, just based on the age of Nebraska, the style of play of Nebraska. And it's a team that I believe could give somebody real fits in the NCAA tournament. It's a team that when you turn them on TV, not only are you going to be a little bit intrigued because Casey, if you're not familiar with Casey, he's going to catch your eye and you're going to see some of the shenanigans.
You're going to be like, why aren't they teeing this guy up?
That might be it. But there's just a lot. There's a lot of meat on the bone with this team. And if you give them a game to watch them, you'll recognize, like, it's a ball club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was weird last night seeing Jamison Battle in an Ohio State uniform after he gave Nebraska such fits over the last couple of years in Minnesota.
Yeah, he's from Minneapolis originally.
Yeah.
So he left Minnesota and left his home state to go play at Ohio State. I think that's a peculiar destination. I'll be honest, I'm not totally familiar with the Jamison Battle transfer story and why that happened, but yes, I agree with you. That's one of those guys that when you see him on the court, you're like, whoa.
Shouldn't he be wearing the gold and the maroon?
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was weird. I also wanted to point out, again, just to throw kudos to the win over Purdue. Since that loss for Purdue, they've played some really good basketball. And Zach Edey, who, again, for all intents and purposes, Nebraska kind of handled, he's been on a little bit of a heater himself.
I really don't like the phrase "since that loss," Bill, for Purdue. And here's why. Purdue's been really good. 17 games this year.
Yeah.
It's just they've had 2 games where they were on the road, and they didn't play to the level of their capability. Mm-hmm. But having watched them, even before Purdue came to Nebraska, like that's still they beat Illinois on their home floor on a Friday night. That's still the same Purdue team that we're seeing right now. So it's not like they had a little downturn and then they kicked it back. No, they've just been really good, like national championship level good. One of their off nights just happened to come right here in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. They, again, Penn State beat them 95-78, Indiana 87-66, Iowa, which, again, we know what Iowa just did to Nebraska not long ago, 84-70, and they just beat Michigan 99-67.
Have you watched some of these highlights of Zach Edey recently where him dunking the basketball in a crowd Like I think his head's going over the rim now.
Oh yeah. As someone who on a good day is 5'6", I look at that and I can't even. Have you seen?
What do you mean on a good day?
It's if I'm wearing my big shoes.
I was going to say like this. Do you have good posture on good days and slouch on bad days?
Yeah, that's more what it is. The kids they bring me down a little bit. But on the it's like on TikTok they'll put like the phone up at like what 6'6" is, and then you film downward, and like that's what I look like from a 6'6". I can only imagine because he's 7'3", 7'4". I would look like an ant.
Yep.
We would both look like ants.
Mm-hmm.
So, also want to touch on, again, obviously the women's team having a great season as well. Amy Williams got the squad at 13-6, 5-3 in conference. They did lose their last game. I believe that was was it Indiana? No, Penn State. But they have on the road against the Hawkeyes on Saturday.
Yeah, they get a little taste of Caitlin Clark. And on the topic of the women's basketball team and Iowa, because their first meeting is coming up this week, this weekend in Iowa City, Nebraska will host Iowa at Pinnacle Bank Arena on Super Bowl Sunday. And learned just today that that game has been officially sold out.
And it's on Fox. Like, I think the big Fox network.
Correct.
That's pretty cool, too.
Fox airing Caitlin Clark, this is nothing new. It's happened several times this year.
But yeah, and
I might get a little Gus Johnson treatment, perhaps.
Hey, I would take that. And so the women are ranked 4th right now in the Big Ten. Both men and women. Maybe a first-round bye in the Big Ten tournament?
Potentially. I would say this, too. As of right now, you may have 4 Division I basketball teams make the NCAA tournament. Creighton men, Creighton women, Nebraska men, Nebraska women, and don't rule out UNO possibly getting one of their men's or women's teams in the tournament.
Has that ever happened?
I don't know. It's a great trivia question right there.
You're going to have to put that one to maybe, who is it, Seamus? The SID there?
Seamus and Rob Anderson, the 2 sports information directors at Nebraska and Creighton. You talk about 2 brilliant minds and 2 historians, statisticians. As good as Seamus is, Rob is just as good at Creighton, and some of the factoids that they pump out, it's pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Seamus last night even had a note about rank massed and the shooting percentage and the 34 points with double-digit rebounds. I think he's just one of 2 or 3 in Division I this year, Zach Edey being one of the others. It's like... And he had that out there to all the media members within like an hour after the conclusion of that game.
I wouldn't even know where to look.
They help us sound really smart on the news, and they help those, online write-ups in the newspaper.
Have all the interesting tidbits, all the coffee, water cooler talk. All right.
So there's a little bit about the women. They've got a couple of meetings with Iowa coming up. Of course, Iowa's kind of the rock stars of women's basketball, and let's see what Amy Williams' team can do here in the stretch coming up.
Yeah, at Iowa on Saturday. The next week they're home both Wednesday and Saturday against Purdue and Rutgers. On the road against Michigan on February 6th, and then, like you mentioned, at home on Super Bowl Sunday, a noon tip-off against Iowa. I also wanted to mention real quick, because I think I saw it. I didn't look into it. I may be misrepresenting here. Did I see that? Was it the men and women's indoor track and field teams are both ranked in the top 25 now?
That is correct.
So there you go. So if you want to go check out...
They're in a stretch of having a lot of home meets. They've been home the last couple of weekends, and I believe they have another one this weekend. They have the graduate invite, and they have the Mark Culligan invite, which pays tribute to the late assistant coach at the University of Nebraska. So the track and field team doing big things early on. They have a couple of individuals who have already earned conference individual honors this year, and I think one of the women's high jumpers, Jenna Rogers, ranks among the top 5 heights in the nation so far in indoor high jump. So pretty good stuff right there. And the Nebraska men's gymnastics team, if we're going to just start throwing out all the good things happening over on campus, the Nebraska men's gymnastics team, I believe, is ranked 3rd nationally right now. The women's gymnastics team, 22nd. The wrestling team, I love Mark Manning's team, and they are so fun to watch. They're in the top 10, just beat Minnesota on Friday in a thrilling duel, which came down to the final bout, and then they won at home on Sunday. I believe they are home again, perhaps this Sunday.
Let's check.
And while you're looking that up, Bill, Nash Hupmaker has gotten so much of the headlines with the Nebraska wrestling team. Mm-hmm. So their duel against Minnesota this past Friday, Nash was not in the lineup. Mm-hmm. Instead, it was Harley Andrews, a freshman who, that was his spot until Nash joined the team and made weight. Put yourself in Harley Andrews' shoes. Like, that's maybe a tough reality to deal with. And then that's what made Friday night so cool. Is a back-and-forth, highly competitive duel. Nebraska lost. Peyton Robb suffered one of his few losses of the season. Ridge Lovett wins. Goes back and forth. Comes down to the heavyweight bout. And it's not Nash. It's Harley Andrews. His time. The team's final result is going to hinge on how he does. And he was wrestling a rated opponent from Minnesota who was 14-3 on the year. He won in the third period with 15 seconds to go. He got the winning points. That's awesome.
That is.
And so as much as everybody likes to talk about Nash, I want to talk about Harley Andrews and how he single-handedly won a road duel for Mark Manning's team and to just stay mentally tough through all of this season at the heavyweight spot for Nebraska. That's the good stuff for Harley Andrews.
No, those are the good stories.
I know everybody wants to see Nash, but right now I want to see Nash and Harley.
Yeah, let's see them both.
Can't have it both ways. But I'm going to be okay if I go to the next home duel and Nash is not in the lineup because I get to watch Harley Andrews.
They're actually on the road Friday and Sunday at Northwestern, at Wisconsin. They're back at home Sunday, February 4th against Illinois.
Yep.
So, also I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Ravens, Chiefs, Niners, Lions. Who do you got going to the Super Bowl?
Who do I want or who do I predict?
Who do you want?
I want the Lions, as does most of America.
Yes.
Just because Dan Campbell is a dude.
Yeah, he is.
I want the Lions. I wouldn't mind seeing the Ravens in the Super Bowl. 10-11 broadcasts the Super Bowl this year, so, of course, Chiefs would be great for our viewership.
It would.
Interest in the game and all of the stories that we can do leading up to it. I know we're in Chiefs country right here. That is not my favorite NFL team. I say my favorite NFL team with shame, the Chicago Bears. So don't throw daggers at me. I know I'm in Chiefs country, but it's not out of line to say I'd like to see a little bit of new blood in the Super Bowl.
No, that's fair.
Right?
That's fair.
It's not like I dislike the Chiefs. I like football. And I love the Super Bowl.
And I agree with you. I don't dislike the Chiefs, but I think Lamar Jackson is just having one of those seasons. Especially after, all the off-season stuff of no one wanted to offer him a contract and some of the things that he went through. I think he's probably going to win the MVP, especially if they win against the Chiefs. But I just think the Ravens it's going to be the year of Harbaugh, Jim and John.
Oh, boy.
I think it's going to be the Ravens and the 49ers, and then I give the edge there to the Ravens.
You think Ravens 49ers?
I think so.
Okay.
But I also forecast the weather, which I get wrong, according to everyone, 50% of the time, so don't take my word.
I want good game. This is just like the classic Kevin statement. I just want a good game.
Yes.
I turn on a lot of sporting events, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. I usually just want to watch a really good game.
Good game and good commercials.
I don't flip very well. I don't go click, 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 click like some people do. I like to just have a game that I can catch in the fourth quarter, and it's a 1-point game with 10 minutes to go. That's my game. I lock in, and I love that. That's like my slice of heaven right there.
Yeah, there you go. And then...
So the end of the Bills-Chiefs game was fantastic.
It was. Oh, man, I can't believe you missed it. But at least all the fans now are supporting Tyler Bass. And I think they're donating money to some charity.
So they're not Bill Bucknering him.
No, they're not. They're not. And then an hour after the Super Bowl ends, hour-ish, you can watch Kevin Sjuts, Cole Miller, Madison Pitch, and Ken Chimmick deliver a stellar newscast. So you have that to look forward to.
That is true.
All right. Anything else, Kevin? All right. Well,
Dylan Raiola is sitting next to John Cook and Jalen
gosh,
Reyes at Pinnacle Bank Arena.
That kid is everywhere.
He is everywhere.
We didn't even really talk about
We're
football.
okay. I think that there's a saturation of Dylan Raiola.
There is.
Pictures, videos,
There is.
web articles.
There
He is everywhere.
I will just ask you, do we have a date for when spring football starts?
We don't have a date for when spring football starts, but we do have a date for the spring game. I don't know it off the top of my head. It is later than normal, so you can assume spring practice will start later than normal.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if it starts after spring break. I know Matt Rhule is not a fan of starting spring, having the kids go away for break, and then coming back and resuming the spring season.
That always seems like it'd be tough. All right, well, we'll have that to look forward to, obviously, here in the next couple of weeks. Kevin, appreciate your time. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Again, as always, you can watch on YouTube, watch on 1011now.com, listen on any of your favorite podcast platforms. Till next time, folks, hope everyone has a nice Wednesday.
You've been listening to the REPORT Husker Show from 1011. Watch, listen, and stream on the 1011 Now app, on YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. For more Husker coverage throughout the week, watch the REPORT on 1011 Sports at 6 and 10 p.m. and download the 1011 Now app.